Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Welcome back as we start the legislative session for the 2025 year. Usually it's rare to have a press conference right on the opening day of session, a day which is so tremendously filled with hope and optimism as we look forward to the upcoming session and getting to work on the issues that are so incredibly important to the people of the state of New York. And the issues that are important to the people of the state of New York are affordability and safety. As I go around the state, as I go around my district, those are the two things that most people speak about. And that's going to be the topic of our conversation today, because as we celebrate today with hope and optimism, having just gotten off the Senate floor, the reality is there is work to be done. We live in a state that is #1 in taxes, that it's the 4th highest cost of living. We have the 2nd worst business climate in the country, according to Forbes magazine, and we lead America in one category: outward migration. New Yorkers are fleeing this state in record numbers. We have lost 1.5 million New Yorkers in just the last 10 years alone. And I am joined today by my colleagues from New York City, from Long Island, and from the Hudson Valley to talk about a microcosm of the mismanagement that has gone on under one-party rule here in the state of New York. One-party rule which has given us a $70 billion increase in spending in just the last 6 years, making it harder for New Yorkers to afford to stay here. And that microcosm is the MTA, and specifically the MTA's chair, Janno Lieber. When we talk about affordability, right, because our commuters want the same things that the residents in New York State want. You want a system that's reliable, you want a system that's affordable, and you want a system that's safe. When you talk about affordability, Comptroller DiNapoli found that there is a projected operating deficit of $3 billion in the MTA. They're spending $1 million to study the psychology of fare beaters, while ignoring the fact that we have $800 million being lost in revenue to those very same fare beaters, yet nothing is being done by Janno Lieber to stop it. You have a $7.8 billion payroll, a record $1.4 billion in overtime cost in just the last year alone. A $68 billion capital plan was approved by the MTA board, being supervised by Janno Lieber, that passed with a $16 billion funding gap. And in order to plug that hole, they are relying upon congestion pricing, the very thing which all of us in our districts are now feeling the pain of. Our constituents are now feeling the pain of, as it now costs more for people to go to work, costs more for people to be able to go to school, costs more for people to be able to go to a doctor's appointment or enjoy the city of New York, costing more for residents in the city of New York to get within the same city that they call home. And that same budget gap, by the way, that they're using for capital funds is the same budget gap that they're saying is going to close the $3 billion in operating funds, all on the backs of our commuters. When we talk about safety, take a look at Janno Lieber's record. In just the last 2 weeks, a woman burned alive on a New York City subway car. On the very same day, a man stabbed to death on a subway train in Queens. 2 men stabbed in separate incidents on Manhattan subways. And to start off the new year, a man shoved in front of a Manhattan subway car who fortunately was brought to safety by onlookers. And what has Janno Lieber's response been? His response has been, in quotes, over these past 2 weeks. Complaints about runaway spending and congestion pricing has simply been called and dismissed as grievance politics. He holds a press conference with Governor Hochul hours after that woman was burned alive on a subway car to talk about subway safety and how much safer the subways are today than they were. A New Year's Eve style countdown broadcast on the MTA's social media pages to celebrate congestion pricing and a countdown to midnight, while New Yorkers continue to feel the pain. And just 2 days ago, said that these horrific attacks that have taken place over the last two weeks, as well as the attacks that continue to happen every single day on the subways, have simply gotten into people's heads, and that the subways and transit are safer and have simply made people feel unsafe. He thinks that we have a perception problem. We don't have a perception problem. Our commuters don't have a perception problem. We have a deception problem. A deception problem on the part of the governor, a deception problem on the part of Janno Lieber, who does not understand, who does not want to understand, who does not care about what it is that commuters want and need. Affordability and safety, and neither during his tenure have been provided, and it's only getting worse. Let's look at the reality. While he's talking about New York City subways being safer, felony assaults are up 55% since 2019. Murders since 2019 have increased by 200%. Violent felony assaults, 374 in 2019. In 2024, there were 579. But there were also about 30% fewer passengers in 2024 than there were in 2019. That is about one assault for every 2 million rides. Look at the Long Island Railroad. Same issues with Metro North. An 18% increase. And crime on the Long Island Railroad has increased to an 18-year high, 21% above the 18-year annual average of 135. That's the reality that Janno Lieber continues to ignore. And so we don't have a perception problem, we have a deception problem on the part of a chairman of the MTA who is paid more than the President of the United States to run the MTA and is no more capable of understanding the needs of working New Yorkers than I am understanding hieroglyphics. That has got to change. Janno Lieber has lost the trust of commuters. Janno Lieber has lost the trust of our conference. And Janno Lieber has lost the trust of New Yorkers and the people who live, work, and raise a family here. And as a result, today, I am here with my colleagues to call for the resignation of Janno Lieber as MTA chairman and CEO. And I am calling upon the governor, if he refuses to resign, the governor to take action to remove him as chairman and CEO. We owe nothing less to the commuters, we owe nothing less to our residents, and we owe nothing less to the people of the state of New York to have a system that is safe and affordable. And if he won't do it, and he's demonstrated that he can't, then we will find somebody who will. And I'd like to call to the podium a brand new senator, freshly minted, 7 days old, representing part of the city of New York in Brooklyn, I believe the 16th Senate? 17th Senate District, a former Marine who is right off the bat making a tremendous impact, who's going to talk a little bit more about New York City and how Janno Lieber's policies and the MTA's mismanagement are affecting it, and that is Senator Stephen Chan. Senator Chen.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Senator Rhodes. My name is Senator Steve Chan. I'm a new senator. Please be patient with me as I apply my new trade. So you know what? Maybe today I won't speak like a new senator. Maybe I'll just speak like Steve Chan, the former NYPD sergeant. Maybe I'll speak like Steve Chan, a resident of Bensonhurst in South Brooklyn. And I brought with me a lot of my constituents right here to my right today who must endure the the buses every day to commute. You know what? Janno Lieber should be made to ride the trains every day by himself. Let him experience that safe subway experience that he talks about with a smile as he tells us that we're saving you money. Look, we're saving you money by charging you only $9 from congestion pricing. He's laughing as he's celebrating the onset of congestion pricing as if he's getting more money to mismanage. I don't know about anybody else. As a stockholder of some public companies, if a CEO is going to keep losing money in a private company or in a publicly traded company, we would fire that guy. We would fire that guy. So I join Senator Rhodes and my other colleagues here today in calling for our chairman of the MTA, Mr. Janno Lieber, to step down, because I have never seen such gross mismanagement of the MTA in my life. And I'm a resident of Brooklyn for 48 years. I'm a cop over there 27 years, and I've seen what safe subways looks like. And he can't tell me that this is safe subways. The woman that was burned just a few blocks outside of my district. And I am deathly afraid of my constituents. They have to be jittery on the subway. They can't look at their phone. They can't even look at other people. What are they supposed to do? Put their backs against the wall away from the platform and keep looking around, be cognizant always of being attacked and being afraid to be set on fire, being afraid of being robbed, or even worse, pushed into the tracks for nothing. And this is just ridiculous. The MTA can try enforcing fare beaters, try making everybody pay their fares. So now all the commuters, I myself, on the first day of congestion pricing, became a victim of congestion pricing, where I must pay $9 to get my car into Manhattan briefly. And that is just ridiculous. That's not what we want. That's not what my constituents are looking for. I'm calling on Mr. Lieber to step down, or the Governor Hochul. You have the authority to fire him. Let's do that. Thank you very much. I now turn this over to Senator Bill Weber. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It's great to be here today. So, you know, I represent Rockland County, where we don't have a one-seat ride into Manhattan, where the MTA is commonly referred to as an ATM, because we are the ATM for the MTA's bad policies over a number of decades. I join my colleagues in calling on the resignation of MTA Commissioner Janno Lieber. The MTA has been mismanaged for years. The tone-deaf celebration of the congestion pricing cash grab was the nail in the coffin, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as my residents in Rockland are concerned as well. Congestion pricing is wrong. It needs to be repealed, full stop. As the speakers before me have passionately and rightfully stated, congestion pricing places an unnecessary and unfair burden on New Yorkers who rely on access to New York City for their jobs. We're talking about policemen, firemen, teachers, right? We're talking about elderly, like my mother, who goes to the doctor in New York City. People that from Rockland County need to take their car and who are being unfairly penalized. The policy claims to reduce traffic congestion, but at what cost? It punishes everyday people who are already struggling to make ends meet. For them, this isn't a toll, it's another obstacle in their daily lives. Tell me, how is this progressive? You know, that's why I'm proud to co-sponsor, along with my colleague, Senator Jack Martin's bill, which is S5425, which not only calls for the repeal of congestion pricing, but it also calls for an independent audit, something that obviously I think we all can agree, based on what we've seen, is that it's probably one of the most mismanaged agencies for decades. And I think Senator Chan said it very wisely. who would continue to give promotions and really recognize and praise the leadership of an organization when they continually lose billions and billions and billions of dollars every year. So I'm calling once again on our colleagues on the other side who, throughout this election, said, we're against congestion pricing too. Now is their time to stand with us to finally do something about it. So we want to have a full audit. We want to have MTA Commissioner Janno Lieber resign. We want the governor to remove him if he will not resign. And let's get competent leadership back in the MTA, something that's been lacking a long time. So I want to thank you for Senator Rhodes for putting together this press conference, my colleagues for really being the only voice in Albany standing against congestion pricing. I'm hopefully our colleagues on the other side who made it a campaign issue, that they're against it, will actually really heed the call and join us. With that, I'll introduce my great Senate colleague from Suffolk County, Dean Murray.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Weber. Thank you to all of my colleagues, Senator Rhodes and all my colleagues here standing here in unison, calling for the same thing, and that is to end the mismanagement at the MTA, and it starts with replacing the leaders at the top. Senator Rhodes started by talking about the fact that this is our opening day of session, filled with optimism. And we should be optimistic. We should be proud of our public transportation system. We are New Yorkers. This is New York. We are the tip of the sword. We are the best of the best. And yet, you wouldn't know it if you rode our subways. You wouldn't know it getting on our trains. You wouldn't know it. It is almost an embarrassment, quite frankly. We should have the greatest public transportation system in the country, no, in the world, and we are so far from it. And we're so far from it because of the mismanagement. We need change, and particularly fiscal mismanagement. Year after year after year, hat in hand, coming to Albany, give us more, give us more. And they keep getting more. When is enough enough? I think we've passed that line long ago. So now it's time to find a replacement. And I've introduced legislation, or I'm introducing legislation that would do just that. We call for Janno Lieber to step down, but replace him with a financial control board. Calling for the formation of a financial control board to take over the finances of the MTA to finally do it right. Right the ship, get it going properly, and give us a product we can be proud of. One that we can feel safe using. So I thank my colleagues. I join in the call on Janno Lieber to step down and again, replace him with a fiscal control board. Thank you very much. And I would like to also now introduce our good friend from the Hudson Valley, our good colleague, Senator Rob Rolison.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you for my colleagues, Senator Rhodes, for putting together this press event today to talk about something. When I saw this the other day, the statement by the MTA chair about perception and public safety and crime being in the riders, the people that pay the bills, in their heads, I was disgusted. As a retired police officer and the father of a police officer currently, those types of statements are also insulting and demeaning to the men and the women of NYPD who go into our public transportation systems every day, below ground, above ground, patrolling the neighborhoods of the 5 boroughs. And to have someone in a position like Janno Lieber to say that that's just a perception issue and it's in someone's head is demeaning to the critical job that they do. And they do this job day in and day out, understaffed. I dare say if you asked any one of the members of the NYPD what they thought, it would not be the same thing. And quite frankly, it is in their heads. It's in their heads every time they go down into the New York City subways. And then it's in their faces because they see the disorder in the subway system, they see it at the ground level, and they are asking for help. They want a government to respond to the top priority of government, which is public safety. And it is high time that the MTA, the City of New York, and this state legislature take that responsibility seriously. Because quite frankly, it has not happened. And I'll end with this. And we just concluded an election season where we campaigned to come back up here to Albany. And I would offer this, that if I said that to my constituents who asked me about, well, what are we going to do about affordability? What are we doing about public safety? What are we doing about trust in government? And I said, you know what? It's really all in your head. I wouldn't be standing here today. I would not be standing here in front of you. I just wouldn't be. So it really is my great honor to introduce a close colleague and someone who represents Staten Island, and that is our Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Andrew Lanza.
Thank you, Senator Rollison. You know, you spend enough time in Albany, there are a lot of things that get in your head. Senator Rhodes, thank you for bringing us together here. Together with my Republican colleagues, we are asking for something that we believe is very necessary for the well-being of the people of the state of New York, especially for those who live in the MTA region. Calling for the resignation of someone is not something that I take lightly, nor do my colleagues. We believe that under these circumstances, it is very warranted. You could tell something about a person by the way they react to criticism, to challenge, to opposition. And sadly, what we have seen from Janno Lieber in the face of criticism and challenge is very disturbing. You heard my colleagues talk about the crime situation on the subways. You know, I first started riding the subway when I attended NYU, and then I held a number of different jobs in Manhattan, hailing from Staten Island. Congestion pricing is wrong for all New Yorkers, but it's especially egregious to those of us who live in the city of New York. You heard from my colleague, and we're so very lucky, and you're going to see a lot from him. We're so very lucky in the state of New York to have him. I remember once I was working at Pete Morrick to get my CPA. And I left from Staten Island. It was a wintry day. I got into the office. A friend of mine that worked there from Long Island. I was disheveled. He said, "What the hell happened to you?" I said, "Well, the train on Staten Island was late. And then the ferry, the winds were really just pushing it to and fro. And then the walk across to the subway, the platform was closed." And I said, "Wait a minute, what are you, Lewis and Clark?" Staten Island is in worse shape than it was with respect to public transportation now. There has been a legacy of neglect from the MTA with respect to servicing, especially the outer regions. Anywhere outside of Manhattan, there is a legacy of neglect. So to tell someone who lives in the city of New York that pays a special, lucky us, New York City income tax on top of the state and the federal tax, to say that now when you want to travel within your own city, you have to pay more. I think it was Senator Rhodes or Senator Rollison mentioned someone, Weber, I think it was. I have a dear friend this morning who had to travel into Manhattan for acute coronary care. As I've just described, public transportation from Staten Island to Manhattan is often not an option. He doesn't make the $400,000 that Janno Lieber makes. This tax that he needs to pay today is a burden that he should not need to suffer, especially given the reason why he is traveling into Manhattan. When we said, and this is what I'm talking about when I say you could tell about a person with respect to how they respond to criticism and challenge. When we all said the crime situation on the subways is not acceptable, as you've heard from my colleagues, and as you heard from him, he said, we were wrong. It's not real. It's a perception. When we said that this tax is insulting, punitive, and offensive to the people of our state, he called us names. He said, you people out there in Staten Island don't care about the environment, you don't care about pollution. When his own agency has shown that this will create more pollution, especially in the outer boroughs. Janno Lieber, sadly, is one of those people who always thinks he is right and the people are wrong. I've learned that when you always think you are right, you are always wrong. What's happening here, I think, is a sad state of the reality we live in New York, what we like to call the soft tyranny that New Yorkers face every day. There was an election a couple of months ago. People are waking up, and they're waking up right here in New York as well because they're sick of it. Every single Republican member of the state Senate representing their districts has come to Albany and has said congestion pricing is wrong. If you believe our Senate Democrat colleagues who have made public statements, it would seem that an overwhelming majority of the state Senate believes congestion pricing should go away. I attended a press conference on Staten Island with every single elected official on Staten Island, Republican and Democrat, and every one of us said, repeal congestion pricing. The people of the city of New York, the people of the state of New York, the people out in Long Island have all cried loudly that they do not want congestion pricing. In a democracy, in a free society, that should be enough for folks like Governor Hochul and Janno Lieber to say, our job is to serve the people, let's do something else. But again, Janno Lieber says, we're wrong, and he's right. Somebody made reference to the new year. If you're like me, you watch the Dick Clark show. As we ring in the new year, we have a tradition. The ball comes down, and there's a countdown in Times Square, and there's a countdown in houses across America. That's a countdown to usher in a new year with the hope of happiness and prosperity and good times for the people of our state and our country. A few moments later, a few blocks away, there was another countdown. There was another unveiling. I could not believe my eyes to see Janno Lieber standing in front of a congestion pricing sign with some flimsy piece of paper on it and a happy countdown to announce congestion pricing. Now, it doesn't give me joy to say this or to ask this question. What kind of person celebrates welcoming in a new tax? What kind of person celebrates the fact that families across New York are going to have less money to put food on their table. What kind of person is happy to see the people that he is paid to serve suffer even more under a policy that they don't want? If you ask me, that's a person who is arrogant, who suffers from elitism, and who is not competent to serve the people of the largest transportation system in North America a single day more. It says a lot more, but I'm not going to get into it. But mostly it says that Janno Lieber needs to go. We deserve better leadership. We deserve a better transportation system. We're not getting it under his leadership, and it's time for a change. I have the privilege of turning it over to Senator Rhodes for questions.
Thank you so much, Senator Lanza. By the way, also joining us today from Nassau County are Senators Jack Martins and Senators Patricia Canzoneri Fitzpatrick. Also from Suffolk County, we have Senator Mario Matera, as well as Senator Alexis White. And Senator Anthony Palumbo. Thank you all, my colleagues, for joining us. Look, I think everyone has made the point quite clearly. I always refer to the MTA as money thrown away. And that's exactly what we've seen, not just for 6 months, not just for a year, but we have seen historically throughout Janno Lieber's leadership. And when the same failures keep happening time and again, failing the residents of the state of New York and failing to provide a system that is safe, a system that is affordable, and a system, particularly in light of congestion pricing, which is only necessary, according to them, because of those failures, that is making our economy struggle, that is making the residents of our state struggle, that is making our business climate even worse. With the disastrous numbers that we spelled out before, there is only one solution. And so I'm calling on him and calling on the governor to start this new year the right way by making sure that Janno Lieber is out of a job and making sure that we're putting someone in place, along with a financial control board, that is able to get the job done and give our residents the system that they deserve.